Hey everybody, and welcome back to some more Feed the Beast Infinity Evolved Skyblock. Last episode, we were working on a couple of things, one of which was our big reactor automation setup. So essentially what we did is we set up a reactor redstone port, we set up an RF monitor, and we have a vibrant capacitor bank from Ender.io. And essentially the way that it works is once the redstone flux level gets above, I think it's 75% is what it's set to right now. Once it gets above 75%, the big reactor shuts down, and then when it drops below 75%, so when we start running out of redstone flux, the reactor turns back on and it continues to work. And essentially what I've done since the end of last episode is I've tweaked this a little bit, so we now have 4 vibrant capacitor banks as opposed to just 1. We got 1 at the top here, and then if we fly down real quick, we got 3 more underneath. The really cool thing about the vibrant capacitor banks, or really any of the capacitor banks from Ender.io, is that you can put as many as you want together, and they will just form into one big weirdly shaped multi-block that will then also carry over the properties of all 4 capacitor banks. So if we go back up real quick, my jetpack is out of juice, and this capacitor bank is now classified as one capacitor bank that can hold up to 100 million redstone flux and can input and output 100,000 redstone flux per tick from any of the sides on any of the vibrant capacitor banks. And one thing that I didn't mention in the last episode, or one of the features of the vibrant capacitor bank that I think I mentioned last episode but didn't really demonstrate, is that we have these charging slots here at the bottom that we can use to charge any of our items that use redstone flux. For example, we've got our fluxed infused jet plate. Up until now, we've been charging it in the energetic infuser, which if we look over here, can output a maximum of 8,000 redstone flux per tick, which means if I want to charge up my fluxed infused jet plate, which can hold 50 million redstone flux, it takes quite a while. It takes a really long time to fill this thing up to its full 50 million redstone flux, whereas if I take this and put it into the vibrant capacitor bank, this thing fills up at 100,000 redstone flux per tick. You can see it kind of climbing up here a little bit, and it fills up much faster. It's already at 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 million redstone flux, and that thing is going to fill up ridiculously fast. While that does fill up, I have run into a couple of issues with a few of my setups since the end of last episode that I want to work on. I want to try and fix in today's episode. So, the first one is the applied energistic system. I came back on, it's been a while since the end of last episode, and I came back on, and all of my ME drives were full. They were all either red or orange. I couldn't put anything into the system, and if I took anything out, I couldn't put anything back in, because we were getting so much stuff from the new sifting system that we have over here. All of the ingots and gems and dusts that we're getting from this system was too much for our AE system. It was filling up way too quick, and so what I've done for the time being is I've invested in one of these ME.io ports, which for those who don't know, essentially allows you to dump the contents of a drive into your system. So essentially what I did is I made a couple of, I think 16K, I made one 64K drive, and I thought I made some 16K drives. But essentially, what you can do is if you take, for example, this 1K drive out and replace it with a 64K drive, you want to be able to get all of the stuff that's on this 1K drive back into the system, because this could contain some diamonds, a bit of redstone, it could contain anything, but essentially what you can do is if you come over here and you put this drive in on the left, and then, for example, I go and take this brand new 64K cell that I've made. This one's full. We don't have any empty cells right now, but if I was to make another, say, 16 or 64K cell, I could put it in over here and then transfer all of the items from this drive into the new larger drive, and then put that new larger drive into the system, and then not have to worry about not having enough space anymore. It's basically a way to allow you to transfer stuff from older, smaller cells into larger, bigger cells, if that makes sense. So essentially, what I've done, I've disconnected this for now, so all of the stuff that's in all of these chests is just currently sat there. The system's not really doing anything. All the sifting has stopped because the system is just backed up entirely until we can get some more ME drives, which is what I want to work on in today's episode. I talked about it a little bit when we started setting up P2P tunnels. We talked about setting up subnetworks to get a bunch of storage, which I'm going to do later on in today's episode, but in order to do that, we have to do a lot of work with our INSCRIBER. Now, right now we haven't automated our INSCRIBER, and the INSCRIBER itself is a fairly slow and fairly difficult to use tool because you can only put one item at a time into each of the 3 slots, so you kind of have to babysit it a little bit to get it all the way through, especially to making large amounts of processors. So right now I've got a bit of a weird setup. I've got a hopper on top, a hopper on the side, and then a chest with an item duct on the bottom, and for those who don't know, with the INSCRIBER, the slots inside correspond to the slots outside. So for example, if you pipe something into the top, it will go into the top slot. If you pipe into any of the side slots, it will go into the middle slot. And then if you pipe in from the bottom, it will go into the bottom slot, which is why I have this set up like this, because I want to make a lot of logic processors, because I want to make a lot more drives. And so what I did is I put a bunch of these printed logic circuits in this hopper, I put redstone in here, and then I put all of the printed silicon that we had in the bottom here. And basically by doing it this way, I can let it put stuff in automatically, and I can walk away and let it do its thing. But what I would like to do is get a bunch more INSCRIBERs and then try and automate the process fully, so that we can go up to our applied energistic system and just request processors instead of having to make them all manually. So that was my original plan for today's episode, but that then led me to another issue that we currently have with this system that we have over here, because right now we have one ME interface on one assembly table trying to auto-craft all of the things that the assembly table can craft, and it turns out that that runs into a couple of issues, and I think we're going to have to make a couple more assembly tables, because if we look at this right now, say that I want to automate the production of redstone chipsets, but also the production of emerald chipsets. I want my system to be able to make both of these. I need emerald chipsets in order to make the resonant machine frames, which we need for the INSCRIBER, and we also want to be able to automate normal redstone chipsets, because they are used in a ton of recipes. And so if I want to be able to automate both of these, I think I'm going to have to do that in two separate assembly tables, because you'll notice over here, there's kind of like a little outline around the emerald chipset, which is telling the assembly table that I want it to focus on making emerald chipsets. And so, for example, the system right now knows how to make redstone chipsets, but if I was to go and request one, if I go and type in redstone, and then I click on craft a redstone chipset, and I click next and start and request one, the system is going to send the redstone to the assembly table, but because the redstone chipset is not selected, it's not going to make one. You'll see it has redstone over here, but it's waiting for an emerald so that it can make the emerald chipset. Now, I can click on the redstone chipset, and it will start making redstone chipsets, but if I was to now request a redstone emerald chipset, which my system currently, I do not think knows how to make. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it just knows how to make the one redstone chipset. If we go over here, let's grab some redstone. We'll put you in there. Let's grab an emerald. We'll stick that in there, and we'll say that that produces a redstone emerald chipset. If you send those ingredients down and over to the interface, we can do that. But now, because we've got the standard redstone chipset selected above the emerald chipset, if we come over here and we request a redstone emerald chipset, let me type in emerald here, and then craft 1 or 2, request start, and we go over here, what it's going to end up doing is not making the correct chipset. You can see that it's made one, we've still got one emerald in here. If we go back over, we just requested 2 of those chipsets, and we only got 1. We already had 1, we requested 2, and it's stuck. Why is it stuck? It's because it used one of those pieces of redstone to make a standard redstone chipset, because both of these chipsets need redstone, so it made a normal redstone chipset and an emerald chipset, and sometimes it'll just make redstone chipsets and it won't make the emerald chipsets, and it doesn't really work when you're trying to craft, or you're trying to auto-craft 2 items that both require the same item to craft, if that makes sense. There are not many items that do this. For example, all of the machine frames here could be crafted in the same assembly table, because the only thing that's different between these machine frames is the gear and the chipset. But if I put in a dense refined iron plate, crushed obsidian, and a circuit board into the assembly table, it's not going to make something else before the other items can get there. And so essentially, it's a real easy fix for something that I feel like I spent way too long talking about. But essentially, all we gotta do is make a couple more of the assembly tables. Once we made a few more of those and put those down with a couple more ME interfaces, we should, if I can find the assembly table here, where is it? It's there, right? So if we make a few more of these, I don't think our system knows how to make diamonds. It does definitely know how to make golden gears. If we take 4 more of those and put those down along next to the rest of them, and again, put some more interfaces next to these assembly tables, it should work out just fine. So we put one like here, here, and I guess like here and here, like that. So now we've got 5 of them. If I type in chipset real quick, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, and I guess emerald is 5. There are a few other chipsets that do also require redstone. So far, I haven't seen that many recipes that require a pulsating chipset or a quartz chipset or a redstone comp chipset. The most common ones are the redstone, iron, gold, diamond, and emerald, because they're used in all of the machine frames and quite a few of the recipes as well. And so what I'm going to do between episodes, for now we don't need to bother with it just yet because we're not going to need it for today's episode, but what I'll probably end up doing, do we have any interfaces in the system here? We do not, but essentially I'm going to put one here just to not confuse the system. I'll probably put the other one on this side and kind of zigzag the interfaces a little bit. Let me grab like some cobblestone to demonstrate this. So we're going to have like another interface right there. We're going to have one right there. Of course, this interface is going to be responsible for this one assembly table, then this one for this one, etc., etc. You get the idea. But this assembly table will be in charge of making like redstone chipsets and then maybe a few other things. This is also going to help increase the speed at which we can make stuff, because if I need to make a lot of items in the assembly table, like I'm doing a big auto craft that requires a lot of assembly table items, if we say only have the assembly table here making redstone chipsets, but then this one can also make another item that's needed, it can make both of those at the same time. It's going to slow things down a little bit because it's going to split the lasers up. Some of the lasers are going to work on here and some are going to work on here. I have tested it. They do kind of split and go to whichever one's nearby. They don't just all focus in on one assembly table, so it should work just fine. But I thought I'd point that out. That is a bit of an issue that I was running into between episodes where I was trying to teach one assembly table how to make all of the chipsets, and it just did not like it. It was backing up the auto crafting and doing all kinds of stuff like that. For now, what I do want to do is I do want to teach my system how to make those resonant machine frames, because if I want to set up a bunch of inscribers, if I want to be able to automate the process of making all of the processes, which is a bit of a weird sentence to throw out there, but I want to be able to automate all three of these. And so for that, we're going to need one inscriber that's dedicated to making the actual processes, right? We're going to have one inscriber that if you put, we'll have an interface like above it. If you put a printed calculation circuit in there, it's going to make the calculation processor. If you put the printed engineering circuit in there, it's going to make the engineering processor, and then the same for logic. If you put the printed logic circuit in there, it's going to make the logic processor. So we can have one inscriber for that. We could use the one we already have, but then we also need one that's going to be able to make the actual printed version of all those. So we need one set up just for this, because each one of the printed version has its own press. So we're going to have 3 more to make all of the individual printed circuits, and then we're also going to have another one that's dedicated to making printed silicon. So all in all, we're going to need about 5, I think, inscribers to be able to fully automate the process of creating all of these processes within our applied energistic system. And so to do that, we're going to need 4 more resonant machine frames, each of which requires 50 million redstone flux. And so I don't really want to have to sit around and then put all the stuff into the system or put all the stuff into the interface every single time that it needs something. What I would rather do instead is teach my system how to do it, and then just request that it make 4 of them, and then we can come back to it a little later on once we're ready to actually put down all of the inscribers. So it does need an enderium gear. What else do we need for a resonant machine frame? I was having machine frame. We need 1 enderium gear. We need 1 emerald chipset. Thankfully, we did just teach our system how to make that. I am going to have to quickly run downstairs and take this out of here, because again, we can only have it ready to make 1 chipset at any given time. So we'll just have that one dedicated to making the emerald chipset for now. What else do we need? We also need crushed obsidian, which our system does know how to make. Let me quickly go ahead and request 2 of those. We need 1 dense iron plate. Hopefully we already have that. We do, because that takes quite a while to craft. So we'll grab one of those. We need 1 intricate circuit. They also take quite a while to craft, but we do also have one of those, so we'll take that. And then finally, do we have that crushed obsidian? We do. Let's go ahead and just tell it that it needs 2 of those. And if it puts all of those together, I don't think we have. All we do, we've already got 2 resonant machine frames. So we'll put that in there. We'll teach the system. I will put this downstairs inside of this interface like so. And now I should be able to go ahead and just request that my system make 3 more of these resonant machine frames. 1, 2, 3. Next. It requires a lot of stuff, but thankfully we can do it. Start, and that should start to put all the stuff it needs into this assembly table after it's crafted it. I think it should already have everything. This is also another issue that we have. We have to select stuff. Once you've selected it once, it should be good to go. So now that I've selected this, it should be fine. Also, if you know a better way, by the way, of doing this, rather than having 5 assembly tables, like if there's something I'm missing here, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I don't know if this is the most elegant solution, having multiple assembly tables. If it's not, let me know. But this is the best way that I could find of doing it. So for now, we're going to leave this doing its thing. That's going to take like 4 to 5 minutes to do each one of those. It's going to take about 15 minutes to make all 3 of them. whilst that's doing that, I want to talk a little bit about subnetworks and how we're going to get a lot more storage without using up just all of our channels. Because right now, we've still only got the one ME controller, but we've got quite a lot of channels coming off of it, and we can actually put all of our storage into one ME channel. So let me just grab a couple of items, and I'll be back in a second to show you how to set up these subnetworks. Okay, so a little while later, I've got myself a couple of ME drives, which are not required to make subnetworks, but we're going to use our subnetwork for storage, so I've used these as kind of a way to demonstrate it. But I've got some interfaces and some storage buses, some quartz fiber, and some ME glass cable dash fluids. We might need a little bit more of the ME glass cable here real quick, actually. So let me quickly see if we have what it takes to make some more of that. We do. It is going to require a little bit of our quartz fiber, but 8 should be more than enough. So essentially, what we have right now is we have one controller. Also, I should grab my probably by now fully recharged flux-infused jet plane. So we'll take that. So what we have right now is, whoa, let me put hover mode on. And we have our one controller, which is the hub for all of our channels, which we're using for all of our stuff. We got some P2P tunnels, which are transferring those channels from the controller to other parts of the our base. For example, all of these interfaces are essentially connected up to one side of the ME controller. But what we can do is we can actually set up what are known as subnetworks, and essentially you can have what I can do here is if I put down 6 ME drives like this, if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. These drives can work without a controller. You can have up to 8 devices, 8 ME devices connected together without a controller, and they will still work. Once you try and get more than 8 devices, they stop working. You need to have a controller at that point, and you have to start using the channels to connect them all together and stuff like that. But if you just have less than 8 devices connected together, if I was to hook this up with power, for example, if I put down the this guy here, the energy acceptor, right about there, and I put like a tesseract next to it, all of these will get power. They'd be a little bit useless because they're not connected up to any kind of crafting terminal, but they would work, they would be online, and they would be capable of storing stuff in any drives that are put inside of them. And so what you can do is, if we do something like this, if I throw down some cable, and then I put down a interface, let me craft these interfaces up into this version. They're exactly the same like this, by the way, they don't do anything different, but essentially what an interface does is it allows whatever's next to it to kind of access the system. For example, like here, we're using an interface to take stuff out of the system and put it into the assembly table, but then like over here with the redstone furnace, we're also using it to put stuff back into the system. And so the interface is kind of a way to take things in or put things, or take things out or put things in to the AE system. So it kind of acts like an interface, you know, it's a way of taking things in or out. And so if we do this and we allow our system access to this subnetwork, because this is a network in and of itself, if we allow it access to this subnetwork on its own via the ME interface, for example, if we put a storage bus down, what this is essentially going to do, if we do something like this, what that's going to do is that is now saying, the storage bus is saying anything on that side of the storage bus is considered storage. For example, if I put a chest there, the AE system will be able to access anything inside of the chest. Because I put an interface there, it can now put in or take out anything in this subnetwork. Because we haven't done this, we haven't connected the systems together. Now, this is all one system. These drives are connected to this system. If I was to do, say, like this, they are now connected, and we have to use channels. But if I do something like this and take those off, this is now part of one network, and this is part of a different network. And if we were to use quartz fibers like so, and if you remember correctly from the last time we used these for the P2P tunnels, the quartz fibers do not transfer data, they only transfer power. So if we were to do this, we're transferring the power from this ME controller and the energy acceptor round to all of these drive cages, but we're not transferring the data. So this is still its own subnetwork. It's its own network of just 6 drive cages and 1 interface. So in total, 7 devices connected together, which is not the 8 that is the limit. So if we tried to add more than 8 to it, it wouldn't work. Right now, we've got 7 devices connected together, and we have told our network that you can access whatever's in here. You can put stuff in, and you can take stuff out. Now, right now, we're in a bit of a weird place because we don't have enough channels coming over here. You can see this thing is offline. So let me quickly move this to where I actually want it to go. I actually want it to go kind of opposite to where all of my sifting is. So let me quickly grab all of this stuff, and let me pull it up from here, because we've got this big long cable which is currently using 2 of its 32 channels. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of pull up from there. So we run this down real quick, if I could do that whilst trying to hover. We'll do that. We'll run this up around and across. We could have used dense cable, but we only need the one channel. So you'll see right now, it's using 2 out of 32 channels. If I was to go ahead and put down the storage bus, like so, and then the interface, again, just like we had it before, and then we'll put down one of these cables. We'll do the whole thing with the quartz fiber, like so. We'll put you there, and there we do. That's going to be a bit of a pain, but we can fix that by doing something like that. That is now no longer connecting, and so now, if we were to go ahead and do something like this, let me put one there, and then let's line these 6 ME drives up like this, so 4, 5, and 6. These should now both be online. If we go down here, you'll see that we're using one more channel. We're using 3 out of the 32 channels because we've added the ME storage bus, and then we've got our own subnetwork here, which is using power from the main network, but is not connected to it in terms of channels, because instead we're using an interface. And so now, what we can do, what we've essentially done, is added 6 more drives to our ME system without having to use 6 more channels, because now the normal system can input and output into all of these drives via the ME interface and the storage bus without having to use extra channels. For example, if I was to take out all of the drives in here and put them all in over here, you'll see that they're all online, and if I take all this stuff out, we only have 5 drive cages over here, so if I just take all of the stuff out of here and put it into all of the drives over here, even though we're only using one channel to have all of this up and running, I will still be able to access all of my stuff. So let's just quickly finish up here, moving all of the items into there, and then we'll put, I guess we need to fill that top one there. We'll take all of you out of here, and we'll put some more, and we'll put 2 in there, and we'll put the rest in over there. So now all of our drives are in these 6, but yet if I come back over here and I right click on my ME crafting terminal, all of my stuff is still here because the system can access these 6 drives. Now that's a pretty cool way of turning one channel into 6 drives, but you can take it one step further. You can actually extend this out and do the exact same thing again. We've only used 7 out of the 8 channels that we have available before we need a controller. We've used 6 on controllers, 6 on drives, and 1 on an interface. So what we can do is we can put another storage bus here with another interface, and then set up another 6 drives next to it, and do the exact same thing. And essentially what we're doing here is we're giving this subnetwork access to another subnetwork. And so if we were to go quickly back into my AE system, let's go ahead and grab some more drive cages if we can here. Actually, I won't take these ones down yet because I kind of like how they look, and I might fill those back up. But let's say, oh, we're out of cable again. Let me quickly grab some more glass fiber cable and make some more of these ME drive cages. Okay, so I made a few too many, but we've got 9 more drive cages. I can now go ahead and, we need like 1 more ME glass fiber cable, and I think, oh no, we can do it because we got a few more quartz fiber in my inventory. ME glass cable dash fluids. Let me grab at least 1 more of those. And now, if we do the exact same thing again, we can put that here. We can put down our 6 drives like this, and that has essentially given us 6 more drive cages worth of space. We can fill all these up with 64K drives, and we can do this over and over and over again. And again, for example, I can take all the stuff out of here, put it in over there, and my system will still be able to access it through the subnetworks. The main network can access this subnetwork through this little connection. This subnetwork can access this subnetwork through this connection, which is also allowing the main network to access the second subnetwork. And we can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on indefinitely. We can have an infinite number of ME drives. I say infinite, I haven't actually tested going on like thousands of drives. The game might crash at a certain point, but we can put an awful lot of drives, and what I'm going to do between episodes, I'm going to fill up this side of the kind of pathway that we've created up to our nuclear reactor with these ME drive cages. Also, I'll probably take down the nuclear reactor at some point. We might need it in the future, so I might move it somewhere else, but I don't want it too close to all of our storage. But we can go on and we can set up a ton more drive cages, fill them with drives, and get a bunch more storage, all while still using the one channel. Pretty cool stuff. So, now that's out of the way, like I said, between episodes, I'll craft up a bunch more ME drives, I'll put a bunch more down of them over here, we'll make a bunch more subnetworks, fill all those subnetworks up with a bunch of drives and a bunch of drive cages. We'll get a bunch of maybe 4K, 16K, possibly 64K, depending on how well our INSCRIBER automation goes. Speaking of which, now that that's done, we can come back in here. We should have the 5, we've got 4 resonant machine frames. Did one of those not quite finish? Or did we request the wrong amount? Or did we do something else wrong? Let me see here. Is it this one? I don't think so. Let me go ahead and quickly request one more of those. I might have done that wrong. But whilst we're waiting... Oh, no, we only need 4 because we've got one over there. That's fine. We can go ahead. We can have one backup just in case. So... now that we've got the 4 extra resonant machine frames, we can go ahead and make ourselves 4 more standard inscribers. I don't think we have that many overclockers. We don't. So let's go ahead and make 8 more sticky pistons. I'm fairly certain that we've got more than enough slime balls right now because I made a ton of them earlier on when I was trying to get all of the Galgadorian metal. We don't have any pure Certus quartz. Wow, we are woefully unprepared for what we need here. So let me quickly go ahead and grab some more of these. We need 1 per thing, so 4 should be more than enough. We do have over here, I think, yeah, we've still got our crystal growth accelerator. Let me quickly grab this guy over here, the energy acceptor, which I don't think is actually doing anything right here because the ME controller can actually accept power on its own. So... let me quickly run back over here. We'll do what we've done time and time again. We'll put that down, and not that down. We'll put down our energy acceptor right about there. That should bring all of the crystal growth accelerators here online. It is, but our system is actually out of power because it's so much is being used by the mass fabricator here. So let me go ahead and disconnect, I guess, all... actually, no, I'll just turn off all of the other sides. Let's turn off the top there. We'll turn off that one, and that one. I think that one is the one that we want to be on. Is that right? I think that is right. Let me just check that real quick. It is not. Which side do we want to be on? Is it that one? Oh my gosh, I have no idea. Is that... nope. This one? It's that one. Okay, let me turn off all the rest of these. We'll set them to blue, and we'll set them to input for the time being. We'll set that one to output. So now all of the power coming from over here. Oh, why? What is going on? We've lost an ME, we've lost a transfer node. Like I said, it's been a while since I've last come on, and a couple of the things that were around before have gone missing. I'm not quite sure why, but let me go ahead and throw down another transfer node right about there. That should start to pump stuff into the culinary generators. We do have 0 in there. Oh my goodness, look at this. This whole thing is a mess. All right, guys, I'm going to go real quick. I'm going to try and fix this. I have no idea what has happened over here, but I'm going to go away. I'm going to fix this up. I'm going to get the crystal growth accelerators online. I'm going to throw in the Certus quartz seeds into the pool here. Let them charge up. Actually, you know what? No, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to move these crystal growth accelerators. I'll fix this up between episodes. For now, we will just grab all of these cables and we'll go and hook this up at somewhere else connected to our main AE system so we don't have to rely on the power being generated here. So I'm going to go find a place to set all of these up. I'll get the Certus quartz crystals and I'll be back in a second. And a little while later, now that I've found a reasonable, well, not necessarily reasonable, but I found a spot to hook up all of my crystal growth accelerators. We now have 4 of these pure Certus quartz crystals. I went down to my compressor and grabbed 4 overclocker upgrades, which I'm going to have to replace between episodes. But for now, we can take all of those, put them into the system, and we should be able to grab 4 more inscribers like so. Nice. We'll grab this one from over here as well. And I'm going to take all of these and bring them downstairs. I'm probably going to end up putting them over here on the very end. I'm not quite sure why we've got cows down here. It's probably actually the grass from Britannia that's having all these spawn in. It's pretty weird because I've had no animals spawn on before, but they've apparently all arrived now, which I guess is fine. So we'll get rid of all of these. We'll go ahead and throw down these inscribers. I guess for now, kind of like this. It looks a little bit janky. We could probably do with extending this out a little bit that way, so we can just kind of continue our line of automation that we've got. But for now, we'll have this set up like this. Do we have a chest in our AE system? Also, we need to invest in some more boosters again. We don't, but we can request one. Let's go ahead and do that. I've gone and got myself one ME interface. The reason for that is that I'm pretty sure we can use that one ME interface to automate all of these inscribers. We might have to tweak the way they're laid out a little bit, but I think we can probably do it. So, let's start with just this one here. I'm going to put down the interface kind of right about there. My plan is to have the interface go to a chest and then have all of the items come out of the chest and go to their respective inscribers. For example, this first one is going to be used if we go over to processors. The first one here is going to be used to make the printed logic circuits. So we need the inscriber logic press, which I think I have on me. Yeah, I just grabbed that. So we got this here. And for this, all we have to do is we have to send one golden ingot to the middle back here. So let me go ahead and grab some item ducts. Actually, I think I'm going to have to head back to the crafting terminal to do this. So let me grab some item ducts. Do we have any in our system? We do, but not that many. So let me quickly see if we have what it takes to make a couple more of those. We don't. We're missing tin plates of all things. So let's go ahead and request like 20 of those. But essentially, my plan is to put down item ducts and then to use what are known as retrieval nodes, which essentially work as kind of the inverse of servos, because servos we put onto one end of an item duct, and those servos pull items out of that storage. Have we got like a zombie attacking us? We do. We really need to get rid of the this tree farm here and replace it with something a little bit more reliable and a little bit better, because there were so many mobs coming from it now and just attacking me randomly whilst I'm trying to craft. But essentially, the retrieval nodes will pull items from an inventory instead of the inventory kind of pushing the items on that inventory, if that makes sense. It's going to be a lot easier for me to kind of demonstrate this by showing you instead of trying to explain it. So let me go ahead and grab a couple of those. We're going to need at least 5, probably more, so I guess we'll take 10. Let's see if those tin plates are ready and if we can grab a couple more of these item ducts here. 36 is going to be more than enough. So actually, we should probably use our travel anchors for once ever. Let's come over here, and what we're going to do is we're going to put an item duct going like this, round to there, and we're going to put a retrieval node right about there, and we're going to say that we want that to request gold. So if we grab some gold from within our system, like so, and we're going to say to this retrieval node, we want you to whitelist gold. We're going to set the redstone signal to ignored. And now, when we want to request, when we want our AE system to request one of the logic circuits, so one of these right here, we're going to say, send one piece of gold to this chest. So, do we have any dense cable? I really need to extend the wireless range so that I can use it over here. We don't have any dense cable. I really want to connect this up to the AE system, to connect this up here. But just for example, for the time being, let me quickly get rid of this interface. Let's imagine I've gone up to my crafting terminal and I've requested that my system make me one of these printed logic circuits. Just this here. What it's going to do is going to send a gold to the interface. It's going to put that gold into the chest, and then this retrieval node is going to request that gold. It's not going in there because this one hasn't requested it. This has requested it. That's gone in. We are, of course, going to have to hook all of these up with power. We'll do the exact same thing that we've been doing with all the rest of the machines. We'll run some hardened conduits up and underneath to the bottom of all these, maybe to the side, because we are going to need the bottom for a few of them. But for this one in particular, we don't need the bottom slot, so we'll run the hardened energy conduit up to the bottom. That's then going to craft it up, and then we'll put, I guess, maybe an import bus on the top. We could go with an import bus, or we could go with an item duct that pulls out of the top and sends it back around to the interface. The only issue is that, like I mentioned before with the power conduits, some of these inscribers require that things going to the top, and some of them require things going to the bottom, and so I think we are going to have to space these out a little bit more, because some of them need, like, all of the slots around them in order to work. So it is going to be a bit of a pain to set up. But what I'm going to do now, guys, real quick, before we set up the rest of these, I'm going to go away. I'm going to make a few more dense cables. I'm going to run the dense cable around here and get the ME interface online. I'm going to run some power cables around, get all the interfaces online. I'm going to decide where I want to put all of these inscribers, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so a little while later, I'm just going to quickly throw some more boosters back into that wireless access point. Hopefully, our system is getting enough power to be able to maintain that, and hopefully it doesn't just kind of shut off halfway through the episode here. But I've set this up, and I think this should work just fine. So, what we have here is essentially the same setup that we had before. We got our interface, which is now hooked up with this dense cable. It doesn't look like the channel is recognizing just yet. Hopefully that does change and this comes online. I might have to like relog to get that to work. But we've got this hooked up. We've got 4 interfaces over here and then one kind of over here on the right. This one's a bit different. I'll get to that in a second. But first of all, over here, 3 of these. This one's the gold one that we set up before. So we've got the one hardened retriever, which is set to pull any gold that ends up in this chest into the middle slot of this interface. And then here it's going to get pulled out once it's actually become a printed logic circuit. It's going going to get sent around back into the interface, at which point it will end up back in the system. So again, for example, if we grab some gold, it's a little hard to put gold into the chest when it's got an interface on top of it, and also I keep coming out of hover mode by accident here, but again, now if we get rid of that, we put the gold in there, that gold is then going to get pulled around into the correct inscriber. We do eventually, I think, want to upgrade these item ducts to maybe some warp item ducts or something a little bit faster, so this is more instantaneous, because right now it's pretty slow, but it's going to go in there. Once it's done, it's going to get pulled out, it's going to go back up and around and into the ME interface, which is the only place it can go. At that point, it's going to end up back in the AE system, fully auto-crafted. Pretty cool. We're going to do the exact same thing with these two over here. If I go back into the system, one of them needs diamond, and the other one needs pure Certus quartz crystals, which actually don't have in abundance. One thing we are going to have to look into doing is auto-crafting, the process of crafting up the Certus quartz seeds, but then also dropping those Certus quartz seeds into the puddle of water between all of the crystal growth accelerators, and then having it be picked up once it is a full Certus quartz crystal. I have a few ideas of how we could do that with some transfer nodes from extra utilities, but I'm going to have to test those out between episodes and come back to that. For now, let's just go ahead and whitelist this one for diamonds, and then this one, of course, is going to be we can just set that to redstone. We don't have to whitelist anything in particular. We just have to set it to pull out whatever is in this outside middle slot right there. I don't think we have to whitelist, although I'm actually not quite sure. Let me grab the press real quick. Let's grab this one and this one. And this one here is going to be the engineering press. I don't think that this item duct here should pull out the diamond. Like, if I put that there, I don't think that's going to pull that out. I think it's only going to pull it out once it's finished. Yes, that looks to be true, which is good. I thought I might have pulled out the actual diamond instead of the finished circuit, but that looks to be working fine. And then, of course, once we've got those Certus quartz crystals, we can go ahead and do the same thing for this last inscriber over here. And then, of course, this one is going to be the silicon press, so we'll go ahead and throw that in there. And again, this one is going to be used to request silicon. Let's go ahead and grab some of that. One thing that I did do between episodes is actually teach my system how to make silicon. So I'm going to whitelist that and then turn that to redstone on. So that's going to actively pull any silicon from this chest. We should also go ahead and make sure that that one is set to redstone ignored as well. And we'll do the same for this one once we have the Certus quartz, but silicon is a bit of an interesting one because the way that we make it, or at least the way that I've been making it, is I think either with sand or clay in a sag mill, and when you do that, there's only a 50% chance that you get silicon. And so what I've done over here above the sag mill, you can see I've added a sag mill to the end of the machine line up here. We've got a sag mill with an ME interface, and essentially I've said that if you send 2 clay there, you'll get 1 silicon. Now, the reason why I did that is if we look again at the recipe for silicon, there is an 80% chance that you will get 1 silicon from 1 clay, and so I'm kind of hedging my bets a little bit that if we send 2 clay to the sag mill, it will at least get 1, possibly 2 silicon sent back to it, and that will kind of back it up a little bit for future crafts, so that even if it doesn't quite get 1 on some crafts, it might get it on others. This could lead to a bit of an issue. For example, if we get like really bad luck and it sends like 3 or 4 clay in a row to the sag mill and none of them end up giving back silicon, we could be in a bit of a sticky situation, but we'll look into that when the time arrives. For now, our system will just send clay to the sag mill and assume that it will get back at least 1 silicon. So that's all set up, and we should be able to send silicon to this chest. It will then get pulled over, and then of course we're going to go ahead and we're going to set this to ignored. It doesn't need to be on whitelist, so we can just set that to whatever. That's going to pull that out and set it round. Now the final one, this one over here, is where we actually create all 3 of the processes. So the calculation, the engineering, and logic processes are all crafted up here. These ones are a little bit different because we actually have to send 3 different items to the inscriber in order for it to work. Because again, if we look at the recipe, we need to send in the specific printed circuit to the top, redstone in the middle, and then printed silicon on the bottom. And so what I've done here is, again, I've set up this server here, which is going to be set to ignore redstone. That's going to pull out the finished product. The top here is the hardened receiver. This is going to be set to whitelist all 3 of the printed circuits, so the calculation, engineering, and logic printed circuit versions. So if we quickly grab both of those, we can actually whitelist those on here, whitelist this one and this one. And again, we'll do the calculation one once we have those pure Certus quartz crystals, which we probably have by now. To be fair, we do. So let's quickly grab this, kind of get all of this done at the same time. We'll come and on this last one on the end here, let's go ahead, whitelist this guy, not that guy, this guy with ignored redstone. We'll put one of those through just so we can get ourselves one of the printed versions. We want to make sure we put in the calculation press. Once that is done, that should end up in the interface. Can I grab it before it comes out? I can. And then all we'll do is over here, we'll go ahead and we'll put that on there as well. And we will set that to ignore redstone. So now if any of those arrive in the chest, which they will do, they will get pulled out and put into the top here. Now, as for the redstone and the silicon, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down an export bus right about here. So I'm going to put one down there, and we're going to hook that up with some glass fiber cable like so. And I've also got space at the bottom. We're going to put an export bus right about there. If I can get this to hook up correctly, it's going to go right there, and we're going to hook this up to our lineup as well. So let me run that along. I think that should be fine. That's going to hook up that export bus, and essentially what we're going to do is we're going to have one of them, if we get back into wireless range real quick. These are not online, which is not boding particularly well for me. I'm pretty sure we've got channels spare. Like if I come over here, we're only using 23 out of the 32 channels, but actually, let's see here. We've got 2 P2P tunnels. That should be working just fine, because one of the P2P tunnels is here, and then the other one is connected over there. Let me quickly grab my memory card and see if I can fix this. So, we'll shift right click on this one, successfully saved settings, and we'll load that in over there. And then the other one, we will shift right click this one, and we'll load that in right about there. They've both gone offline now, but they should both come back online, and we should get our full 32 channels here, and then the full 32 channels here, neither of which we're using, of course, but they should work just fine. Hopefully. We'll see if everything comes back online. There we go. That's online. And then this one is also back online. It still says 23 out of 32. Is this stuff coming online? It is not. I'm going to have to look into that and try and figure out why that's not working. That definitely does not need to be there. This should definitely be working. It works all the way up to here. This one's working, but then that one's not. So I'm going to have to look into that. But essentially, we're going to have this middle one set to export redstone. So it's always going to have redstone in this middle slot here. There's always going to be redstone ready to go into it. And then the bottom one is going to be set for printed silicon. So let's go ahead and grab one of the printed silicons. This one's not working because it does not have any power. Let me quickly do something like that. Once that's done, that will get us a printed silicon, which we can then go ahead and tell the export bus on the bottom to constantly put into the INSCRIBER. Now, the problem with the printed silicon is, unlike redstone, we have redstone being created by our sifting system, and so we're always going to have a constant supply of redstone in our AE system, whereas with printed silicon, that's not the case. And so what we're going to have to do is create a crafting card from Applied Energistics. So if we go in here and type in crafting card, basically what this is going to allow us to do, if we have the stuff to make it, which we do, is it's going to tell the system that if it doesn't have any printed silicon in its system, then go ahead and craft some. So if we always want to have silicon, printed silicon in this INSCRIBER. If there is nothing inside of the AE system, then make some. It's going to look, can I make it? It's going to realize that it can make it in the INSCRIBER here, and then once it realizes that it can make it, it's going to go ahead and make it and send it over to that INSCRIBER. So now, all of these INSCRIBERs are set up correctly. All we need to do now is actually go back over to our pattern terminal and teach the system all the patterns. For example, let's come back over here again. We're going to have to teach it that diamonds, gold, or Certus quartz equal the printed circuits. So let's come over to here. Let's say that diamonds equals that. So 1 diamond equals 1 printed circuit. Encode. We might need a few more of those blank patterns there. Also, let me get rid of some stuff that we're not going to be using. We'll teach it that 1 gold equals 1 printed logic circuit, encode that, and then we'll teach you the 1 of the pure Certus quartz crystals equals 1 of the printed calculation circuits. We'll encode that. So now it knows how to make all of the base items. Let me see, do we have what it takes to make a couple more of those patterns? I think we should. No, we're missing out on the quartz glass, which should be fairly easy to make. Let's go ahead and grab a little bit of that and see about making a couple more of these blank patterns like so. Once we've got those, we now need to teach it that silicon, 1 silicon equals 1 printed silicon, like so. Make sure you're in processing mode, not crafting mode. We can go ahead and encode that. Then, if we head on back over to here, we can put all of those into the interface, and now we just need to teach it how to make the final step, the actual processing part of the equation. And for that, I actually have to go ahead and throw all these things through, but unfortunately, my channels are not working, so my redstone and silicon hasn't actually made it here. So what I'm going to do, guys, real quick, I'm going to go away. I'm going to try and figure out why my channels are not coming along this way, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so quite a long time later, and I cannot for the life in me figure out why the system is not allowing channels kind of past a certain point. So I did a bit of a test here, and you can see right now that all of the channels up to this point are working fine. You can see if we go back here, 2, 3, 4, it shows how many channels are currently on this dense cable, going all the way down to 1, which is this one interface right here. That one interface, you can kind of see right there, is online. This one is working just fine. And it's being used to make the crushed obsidian. However, over here, this one is not online. You can see at the top there, if you're looking Whaler, it says ME dense cable, 0 out of 32 channels. However, if I bring this back by 1 and put it right about there, and then you give it a few seconds, it will register it, and it will actually say 1 out of 32 channels, and it will be fine with the ME interface being just there. I tested this, I brought it all the way back to here, I put the interface there, and then moved it up 1 and up 1 and up 1. You can see right now, it says 1 out of 32 channels, and for example, if I come over and put a server in there, that server disappears into the system. But if I pull this over by 1 more over to there and then hook this up like so, 0 channels. No matter how long I wait, it says 1 right now, but then if I look away and then look again, it says 0, and then that 1 kind of just turns into a 0, and it stops working. I have no idea what is causing this, and by the way, it now no longer works. Stuff just gets backed up inside of here. I don't know if it's a distance thing, because these over here are also not working. They should have been working. They have been working in the past. This one, especially, I've seen it work. It's exported Epic Bacon before, but this one stopped working, and that one is kind of far away. It comes kind of down through a hole in the floor there, and then around it up to that, and then this one over here, of course, is quite far away as well, and is also not working. But for whatever reason, hooking stuff up over here is just not working. If I hook it up a little further back, it works just fine, but if I try and hook it up too far along, it's just not working. I have no idea what is up with that. If you have any suggestions or any ideas as to what I'm doing wrong, if it's something blatantly obvious or maybe not, feel free to tell me in the comment section down below. I'm going to try and fix this between episodes. If I can't get it to work, what I'll probably end up doing is running this cable, kind of this central cable here, down along and setting up another P2P tunnel for the last couple of items, because I think it might be the fact that we've got this like one P2P tunnel, which is all the way over here, and then a very long cable coming to all the way over there. But I feel like it should work. I'm not quite sure why it won't work, but I can't figure it out. I've spent like the last half hour looking at Reddit, seeing if I can figure out what's up with this. I cannot. For the most part, this is almost ready to go, this whole like automated INSCRIBER process. But for now, I'm going to have to end this episode of Feed the Beast Infinity Evolved Skyblock there. Next time we'll come back. Hopefully this will be fixed and we can move on to actually automating all the processes of all of these, getting them all, and then getting all of our new drives over in our subnetworks. But for now, guys, thanks for watching. As always, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to like. It really does help out a lot. Leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys next time.